Welcome to the Healing You Method with Gloria Lybecker. Gloria, for our viewers, how do they really know if they are actually in a safe state versus, white knuckling, thinking that I got to be calm, I got to be calm, I got to be calm?
I know for me, there's a sense of holding on really tight, even while I'm trying to relax.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Once you've experienced more of what it really feels like to be truly embodied in a safety
hmm
state, then you could start to recognize it more easily that you're in the white knuckling.
How our vagal nerve has been imprinted from birth, even to have this propensity of hyper regulation, being hyper focused on, am I safe? Do I matter? Think of it as a gift for yourself or for your clients, those that are serving clients, is to give yourself permission to feel safe in really these small doable ways and to realize that they're available, because regulation, it's not a destination, it's actually a relationship with yourself.
What's right in front of me.
Welcome to the Healing You Method with Gloria Lybecker. And I'm her co-host, Gail Donahue. And Gloria, I'm so excited that we're going to be talking today about safety first.
Mm.
And, I was thinking, okay, what does that really mean? And I know we've talked about what that is looking at rewiring our nervous system for real change. And so this focuses on the polyvagal basics, the polyvagal theory. And when we look at the polyvagal theory, we want to be looking at the cues of safety for us as humans, and also looking at micro regulation rituals. So this sounds so interesting. So Gloria, for our viewers, how do they really know if they are actually in a safe state versus, white knuckling, thinking that I got to be calm, I got to be calm, I got to be calm?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, because at first glance, they both, you might look the same, because there'd
Mm,
be like a slowed breath, there'd be a soft tone or a calm expression. The internal experience, though, is very different. So a true safe state, it feels there's like an ease in your body and your breath flows naturally, it's not forced, and your shoulders soften on their own. And you feel connected to yourself, to others, and to your environment. And the thing I really like about this the sense of safety is there's spontaneous playfulness or curiosity, and even a sense of humor that can just emerge naturally.
mm,
And when we're in white knuckling calm, um, that's really performing regulation rather than experiencing it. And so the body, it may be still, but there's a real hum of internal tension. And there's a hyper awareness or a watching of yourself to make sure you're staying calm. And you actually feel very disconnected, emotionally flat, or subtly anxious. So I know for me, there's a sense of holding on really tight, even while I'm trying to relax.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess a question I would ask myself is, am I with myself in the moment, or am I managing myself from the outside?
Mm, interesting. Yeah. Yeah, that and I'm wait, as you're sharing that, I'm thinking about the work I've been doing on this journey of life. And I know I'm getting to that point now where I can recognize that I am not regulated to be in a safety state. And I've gone into a pattern of white knuckling it. And
Yeah.
and one thing that was has become really clear to me is once you've experienced more of what it really feels like to be truly embodied in a
hmm
safety state, then you could start to recognize it more easily that you're in the white
Yeah.
knuckling because you
Oh,
need
yeah.
to really know it and understand it to be able to then be aware and recognize it so you can do something about it.
Well, yes, especially when we're managing ourselves from the outside, that's going to open up our inner critic.
Hmm.
You're not doing it right. Rather than when we can then notice, oh, I'm managing myself, and we have the practice of bringing in compassion, then that softening is what can begin to emerge. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, accessing that compassion for ourselves, it's not something that we're traditionally brought up to do. It's, more
Yeah.
like, okay, come on, you
Yeah.
can do it, suck it up. You get, put your big boots on and get out there and do it, as opposed to recognizing, gosh, this is really true for you and this is hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, well, because there are a lot of things in our environment that just can quietly dysregulate us, you know?
Oh, that's great. That's saying that. So what kinds of things typically dysregulate us, especially when we don't necessarily know that they are?
Well, yeah, a lot of people think that it's the big traumas that do this, but it's not really. Often it's those micro stresses, and it actually drains our vagal tone over a period of time. And there's some really sneaky ones out there, like open spaces that have constant visual and auditory input, like big stores or cafes or even hospitals. And then there's those fluorescent lighting that have
Hmm.
persistent hums from the electronics. And those really trigger really low level threat responses in sensitive systems. And there's a lot more of us that are sensitive out there that we acknowledge. And then one of the ones that's really come up more in our environment has been the chaotic social media scrolling, because
Mm.
our nervous system, it doesn't always distinguish between, is this my life or is that their life? Some of the things you see when you scroll are alarming. And then
Yeah.
one that I had just the other day, it's non-attuned conversations. So it's like when someone's talking at you or they're
Mm.
oversharing without reciprocity, and your system just subtly withdraws. You know what that's like?
Yes, yes, totally. Totally. Where you kind of, if if you think about, well, for me, when I think about it, it's feeling like you're almost being hit in a way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes, it can be as much as that. I mean, it's not
Yeah,
happening, but I think that's a sense that my nervous system feels.
exactly. Yeah. And another one I know that shows up for me is if having the experience of a lack of privacy or personal space. And this comes up a lot for those who are neurodivergent, and as well as the ones that are highly sensitive. And so that these types of subtle triggers, they can activate our inner dialogue that is filled with a self-criticism, maybe a
Mm,
sense of urgency, or begin to compare ourselves, that really then sparks that dysregulation.
yeah,
You know,
right, right. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think, typically, well, again, I'll just speak for me. If
yeah.
it keeps, being unaware and then the patterns being there, it just starts to reinforce it. My
Oh,
nervous system learns more of the dysregulated response, that where the polyvagal, the nerve is in more of an alarm than accessing the calm. So I really know that practicing and consistently practicing getting into that calmer state is so important.
well, yes, just like what you're saying, recognizing those imprints, how our vagal nerve has been imprinted from birth, even to have this propensity of hyper regulation, being hyper focused on, am I safe? Do I matter? And believing, having this belief system that runs us that we're not, but we got to pretend we are. And so there's this pretense that we are imprinted with. We're supposed to show up a certain way, and it's not true. And
Hmm.
yet it's rare that we meet someone that reflects that to us, that we're good to go just as we are, that we're
Yeah.
unique and vibrant and I don't know, there's something really beautiful about that. when we get to be who we are instead of trying to be someone else.
Yeah. And that is bringing to me the light of like who you get to be who you are instead of being someone else, and you have someone else with you.
Yeah, you're not alone.
You're not alone doing it. That just is so huge and just demonstrates, as humans, we're wired to connect with other humans. And so,
Yeah.
so important that we don't have that sense of being all alone.
Well, yeah, that's why I really have shifted my focus to creating small cohorts of women to gather
Mhm.
together to journey with each other as they find their way to true regulation, to having that spaciousness that allows them to be who they are, fully human.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
I get angry and that's okay. Sometimes I get stressed and that's okay. I don't have to be just this calm, demure person. That's not me. I get to be vibrantly me.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, we have all of these emotions in us.
And they're
So,
all welcome. Yeah.
yes. Yeah, exactly. Well, where if you do get this, activation from events or you're just wanting to learn about our vagus nerve and getting
Hmm.
more into the safety zone, what kind of like you've mentioned before about these sensory anchors, and I
Hmm.
think you've mentioned that they're sound or scent or texture, and
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
wondering, can you share with us some ideas and tools that we could use to restore our vagal tone faster?
Yeah, I learned a lot about this through my experience with my youngest son, who is very sensitive. And I worked closely with an occupational therapist and actually set my home up to be like a whole gym for this practice. But with sound, there's low frequency humming or singing or chanting. And I also, there's systems like I use the integrated listening system that has some of these tones that you can listen to that really like the or the ooh, and it vibrates the vagus nerve through the throat. So they could listen and they could actually participate with. Also, one of my favorites is nature sounds. So bird songs, rustling leaves, water trickling, horses neighing. Those
Mhm.
are all evolutionary signals of safety. To have those sounds around, the environment is safe. And then also one of the ones that most people will probably resonate with would be familiar music that really brings up a sense of comfort, joy, or nostalgia, especially when it's associated with a safe connection. I really, really love music for that reason. It's very powerful. Music is healing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And with scent, there are some scents that studies have shown really make a difference, and that's lavender, rose, frankincense, and bergamot. Those actually calm the system and support heart coherence. And then with baking, I know the smell of vanilla really does it for me, but also baking soda, the sense
Oh,
of baking, the sense of the baking, all those ingredients coming together and then baking, it'll just bring up a sense of warmth and caregiving. I
mm,
know the smell of fresh baking bread takes me right back to my childhood. And so you can use a diffuser, or you could place a dab of some of these essential oils on a scarf or a tissue, and you can inhale them gently throughout your day, and it really will support you to come back. And then with texture, I know we experimented a lot with that with my son, using weighted blankets or warm wraps that can
right.
stimulate the body's deep pressure receptors like a full body
Yeah.
hug. He didn't like weighted blankets, but it was really cool, and people might want to look into this. You can get what's called a parachute swing. And the parachute swing, when you sit in it and you swing in it, it hugs you. And the
Oh,
texture of it isn't like the weighted blanket, it's not heavy, but it still wraps you up. And it's fun. It's a lot of fun. My grandkids really loved it too. And then using natural fabrics that are soft, like cotton, fleece, or wool. And, so you could use those in scarves, socks, or shawls.
mm,
And then just skin to skin grounding, touching your own arms, legs, or your sternum with presence and kindness. So this is something I started years ago. when I would notice my inner dysregulation, I would put my fingers here and I'd silently say to myself, I'm here with you. So,
Mm.
accompany myself that way.
Yeah, that sounds beautiful, Gloria. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that those are you listed like quite a number of tools in each of the categories that people could access and just try one and
Yeah.
see how that works. And then if you didn't notice too much of a difference, then try one of the other ones you've suggested or yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's really helpful.
Yeah. Well, one way to integrate this, just to leave a gift for yourself, think of it as a gift for yourself or for your clients, those that are serving clients, is to give yourself permission to feel safe in these small, doable ways and to realize that they're available. Because regulation, it's not a destination, it's actually a relationship with yourself.
Mm,
And so it's not like you need to take 90 minutes a day to meditate. You need these little small micro moments of homecoming throughout your whole day. And that's a practice, and that's a doable practice. And the more you practice it, the more accessible it becomes.
yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely have experienced that myself. Well, thank you, Gloria. Thank you for all of this great information that you shared with us today. It was really interesting. And I look forward to our next session when we get together to learn more about accessing safety and learning about our vagus nerve and becoming
Yeah.
who we are.
Okay. I look forward to that too, Gail.